Meanwhile, Israeli President Rivlin introducing a surprise guest in his meetings with top UN officials and ambassadors. Leah Golden, mother of the late Israeli soldier Hadar Golden, who is one of 4 Israelis held captive in Gaza by Hamas terrorists for the past 6 to 7 years. Rivlin then bringing Leah Golden in hopes of pressuring the international body into using its authority to help bring these captives home. Likewise, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett conditioning the aid meant for Gaza's post-conflict reconstruction on the return of these captives. But the United States' Biden administration opposing such conditions, holding firm that the demand could cause ceasefire negotiations to fall apart. Joining me now to discuss is expert on Middle East and U.S.-Israel ties and retired Israeli Ambassador Yoram Ettinger. Yoram, Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us. Now, starting at the United Nations, how effective do you think Leah's visit will be in changing the hearts and minds or swaying them towards actually putting the pressure where it needs to be?
Well, the best predictor for assessing the impact on the UN is the past behavior of the UN, and that past behavior does not entice one to have, I would say, any hope for improved behavior. The attitude by the UN, or to be specific, the attitude by members of the UN. And I would point the finger especially at the European members of the UN, has been abysmal. They have ignored the past performance of Hamas, deluding themselves that Hamas is driven by an urge to improve standard of living, to improve the level of education and health, which has nothing, but absolutely nothing to do with the agenda, with the vision of Hamas. Any assistance to Hamas is going to achieve exactly the same results as prior projects of assistance, by the way, to Hamas, as well as to their masters, namely the Ayatollahs of Iran. Any assistance is going to be dedicated by Hamas to bolster their terror machine, to bolster their missile power, to improve the precision of the missile, and to extract more and more Israeli blood. The same thing goes for an agreement which will involve or will not involve return of Israeli, living Israelis and dead Israelis. I think it's time for the UN, it's time for the US, in fact, it's time for Israel also to realize that Hamas is not amenable to credible negotiation. Hamas was established, is operating for one specific goal, and this is the destruction of the Jewish state.
Okay,
and the sooner.
Well, so I was going to ask, with everything that you're saying, especially considering, as you said, Hamas's unmovable position, essentially, back to Bennett and Biden, what do you make of their respective new stances, or so to speak, new stances? Is Bennett correct in holding firm to his negotiation conditions, or is a softer hand, as advocated by the White House, better suited, and why?
Well, the way to deal with Hamas, just like any other terror organization, is by defeating Hamas, by defeating those terror organizations. To attempt to achieve few more so-called quiet years has nothing to do with relaxation of the atmosphere. Those years of no terrorism, those years of no bombing were dedicated to expand the firepower. By the way, both Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in the south, there's one way of achieving a victory over Hamas, and this is by demolishing its firepower. And I would say especially the head of the snake, not the body of the snake. And the head of the snake are the so-called the so-called Hamas political leaders. There's something which especially the US should realize. Hamas is a proxy of Iran's Ayatollahs. Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And both the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the largest terror Sunni organization in the entire world, both Muslim Brotherhood as well as Iran, consider the US, not Israel, as their top target. The aim of the Ayatollahs of Iran is to eject, to expel the US from the Persian Gulf, from the Middle East, and to subordinate the US to the Islamic Republic of Iran. The pretense or the illusion that they are amenable to some gestures ignores the fact that by definition, Iran as well as Hamas are not amenable to peaceful coexistence.
All right, Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.